God's blessings to each and to every one of us on this beautiful day. And if we look at our gospel lesson, and we'll also reflect back to our Old Testament lesson for today, it begins with this statement again and again, which is a portion of the commandments. It's the third commandment in our understanding of the commandments. And it appears in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and in Exodus chapter 20. And the words are identical. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. But we have this story in the gospel lesson today, amazing story about as Jesus and the disciples are just walking through the field, the disciples are just reaching out, gathering a few grains together, probably for that evening's meal. They weren't doing anything vicious. They weren't doing anything to rebel against God. They weren't doing anything to deny the teachings of Jesus. They weren't doing anything to steal or to rob from anybody else. But yet, the Pharisees are on scene, are they not? We all have Pharisees in our life, don't we? They're always trying to tell us how we should live. We're going to talk about those Pharisees a little bit. But there's a story here in our gospel lesson. But as they're doing this, the Pharisees get on them, and it reminds me, when I was campus pastor at the University of Arkansas, I knew I was going to be there for only 1 year. And so when you're serving a congregation or a parish or a ministry for a year, you really got to be focused, and you really got to get things going. And this was still in my very, very active time in my life when I was playing fast pitch softball and traveling all over the United States, going to tournaments and playing fast pitch softball. And I decided, while I'm here in Fayetteville, while I'm on campus at the University of Arkansas, I need to get out there and get on a team. And I went out and I talked to 2 or 3 of the teams I'd see practicing out in the field, and I'd say, I'm here for a year. I just moved here. I just got in town. I'd like to try out for your team. And every one of them told me the same thing. Nah, our team is set. Our team is set. We don't need anybody. We don't need anybody. And I thought, all you got to do is give me a tryout. I'll prove to you. No. And basically what they're saying is, hey, these are our friends. We're not going to put one of our friends on the bench so that you can play with us. So I went back to my office that day, and I thought for a minute, what am I going to do? I said, okay, if they won't let me play with them, I'll go get my own team. And I said, I don't know anybody. I'm in a new town. I'm in a new state. I'm in a state that I swore I'd never go to. What am I doing in Arkansas? The Razorbacks were one of my hated enemies in the Southwest Conference. What am I doing here? And I had a car. This was in 1971, and the year before the University of Texas had won the national championship. And in the back window of my car was a giant sticker this big. Texas Longhorns, national champions. And I didn't have a garage to park my car in, and I parked right next to the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity house. And I gave my car about a week before that windshield would get broken. And by the grace of God, and God bless the people of Arkansas, nobody touched it. For years, nobody touched it. But anyway, I decided I'm going to go put my own team together. I said, well, who do I get? Well, I went to the head baseball coach at the University of Arkansas. I introduced myself, told him what I wanted to do. And I said, Coach, I want you to play. I said, obviously you're a coach. I read up on your history. I know you played in Minnesota, and I want you to play. He's a big, strapping, left-handed, hard-throwing outfielder. And I said, but what I want you to do also, you're the coach. I want you to bring 3-year players off your team with you. And we need some youth out there. Let's get some of those younger guys out there. And I said, the next thing I want you to do, I want you to introduce me to 5 of your favorite high school baseball coaches, and I'll go recruit them. Just give me their names, tell them what school they are. And so I spent a little time traveling around the little small towns outside Fayetteville. And I went to each of these baseball coaches did the same thing. I'm putting together a team. Coach DeBryan had shared with me that you're a guy we need on the team. Will you play? And we played. We put that team together. And we got in that league with all those teams that said they wouldn't give me a chance to try out. And I don't know how to say this in any politer words. We beat the snot out of them. And I had no remorse, and I had no regret, and I had no shame. Okay? We did so well, we won the state championship that year in the state of Arkansas. Now, the unfortunate thing was I was only there a year, and after I left, those guys kind of all went different ways, which was unfortunate. Because in addition to the guys that I recruited, 2 of the football coaches in the University of Arkansas came out and wanted to play. And one of them, God bless, I can't remember his name, was about a 6'6". He played tight end in college, was All-American, and he wanted to play first base. I said, okay. He said, but I don't have a glove. I said, I'll buy you a glove. He said, no, I don't need them. Now, what do you mean you don't need them? He played first base barehanded. And I'm telling you, no matter how hard you threw it to him, he just reached out with that big old giant 10-foot claw of his and just wrapped his fist around it. People laughed at him once, and then they didn't laugh anymore. They didn't laugh anymore. The reason I tell you this story is that Coach Norman O'Brien, who is long time the head baseball coach at the University of Arkansas, was married to a beautiful young woman who was part of the royal family of Hawaii. And after he got engaged, he went with his fiancée to visit her family in Hawaii, and they were part of the royal family, and he was there to introduce to the family himself. You know, his future wife saying, my family needs to meet you. So they get there late at night, they fly into town, they go to bed late, and the next morning, mom and dad and their daughter are up making preparations for the wedding. They're out buying gowns, getting stuff together, and talking to people. And Coach O'Brien sleeps late in his bed. He gets up a little bit later in the morning, and nobody's there. But he's standing in the living room, and on the mantle of the fireplace was the most unbelievable breakfast he had ever seen, ever in his life. Took it, sat down at the table, warmed it up a little bit, and enjoyed the best breakfast he said he had ever had in his life. The family came home a little bit later, and you hear them all in the living room going, ah! And he heard this phrase, who ate Buddha's offering? He's a good Catholic boy. He didn't know Buddha. And he did not know it was a custom of good Buddhist families that when you ate, you always set a place for Buddha as an offering. He did not do it to disgrace the family. He didn't do it to in any way rebel against their faith and their religion in Buddha. He didn't do it to be mean or cruel or selfish or unkind. He thought they were being particularly remarkably kind to him. After all, he's the new family member. Wow. With that in mind, let's take a look today at this commandment. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and try to understand what God is wanting us to know. You are here. You're the faithful. It's preaching to the choir. You understand what the Sabbath day is. You understand the value of being in church on Sunday. And we're going to talk a little bit about this in a more personal sort of way. So the question I'm going to ask you now, how many commandments are there? How many? You think that's true? We know who the Pharisee in our church is. Actually, the Pharisees had 613 commandments. How did you know that? Huh? Just took a wild guess. The Pharisees had 613 commandments, but how many commandments do we have? Well, we think we have 10, but when they came to Jesus and they said, Jesus, tell us, of the commandments, which ones are the most important? He said, there's only 2 commandments. And what are those 2 commandments? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your being. And love your brother as you would love yourself. Okay? Love each other. Now, Jesus is not saying the other 10 are no longer in existence. He's simply saying, if you want to understand the 10, this is what it's all about. We teach confirmation. We share with the young kids that there are 10 commandments. Commandment 1, 2, and 3 deal with our relationship with Jesus Christ, God our Father, and the Holy Spirit. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deal with our relationship with each other. And they come in that order and that significance and that number for a purpose, because what God is saying to us is our relationship with him is really pretty simple. It must be number one. And he says to us the three principles of our relationship with God are to put him first in our lives, respect and honor his name, and remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's our relationship with God. The other 7 deal with our relationship with each other, and God is saying, dealing with me, God, is going to be a lot easier than it's going to be dealing with each other. And if we look at our lives, that's true, is it not? You know, there's all sorts of ways you have problems with each other. But we need to think of that and focus on that. But Jesus said, commandment 1 is to love, to honor, to respect our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, all of our being. And he's telling us this, if you've ever been a parent, you know when you have small children, those children don't understand the dangers of the world in which we live. And so you set rules, you set policies. When your daughter starts dating, why does she have to be home at midnight or 10 or 11, whatever the parent decides? It's not because there's something magical about that time. It's not because God said all girls should be at home in bed at 10 o'clock. It's because that young girl left to her own whims and to the nature of this world will not have the control to deal with the issues. And the longer you're out, the later you're out, the more issues there are. You know, when you tell your kid not to walk on the edge of the cliff, it's not because you're trying to take the fun of this world or the beauty of the valley below. It's because some people fall off of cliffs. Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon? There's a book written about the Grand Canyon and all the people that have died visiting the Grand Canyon. And I don't remember the number now. It's like 812 people. It's not a minuscule number. And it tells a story about the people and what they think happens. So many times they don't know. They just find a body at the bottom and they don't know exactly what happened. Some of them are climbers that fell. Some of them are sightseers that just leaned it too far, a little too far over. Some of them are people that committed suicide, wanted to take their own life. Some of them are hikers who got dehydrated. They come down the wall of light. When you stand at the Grand Canyon, the other side doesn't look that far. But it's miles. And people take the trek down, and they don't have enough water to get over and make the trek back up. More people have died coming up than going down. And it's true in the life that we live. And what God is saying to us in the commandment, God is not saying, I'm going to take this away from you, I'm going to take this away from you, I'm going to take this. What God is saying to us is I'm trying to help you understand where the parameters of safety and security and how we can make your life better and help you to be happy and healthy and wealthy and wise and not to fall off the cliff. And, you know, if you've ever ridden in a car with me, I have a tendency to go a little bit faster than that sign says. This is confession time, okay? But my car goes faster, okay? And I would bet that Mary driving that Corvette has on occasion gone a little over the speed. Huh? Nobody buys a Corvette to go 20 miles an hour. Huh? And left to my own powers, I'd probably go 100 miles an hour. But I know God tells me, the law of the state of Texas tells me, that's not safe. And it might not only be your life, you might also cause a problem in the life of some other innocent person. If you ever take the bypass around Austin, Texas, there's a new bypass. The speed limit on that thing is 85. 85. One night, late at night, I was blowing around that thing and I was going 90. And all of a sudden I realized there's a portion of it about the last 10 or 12 miles that there's no lights and it's just pitch dark. And you realize, you know, it's pretty good. Get around Austin, not have to fight the traffic. Get around it at 85 miles an hour, get south of there pretty quick. And then all of a sudden, I remember the stories of the number of people doing that very same thing that at night hit a deer or a javelina or a wild hog, and not only destroying their car, but many times taking their own life. Because you can't see the danger in the darkness. You can't see it. And what God is saying to us with this commandment to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, he's saying it's so that we can be aware of what's in the darkness, and we can know where the safe place is, and we can know where it is, where we should be in order not only to take care of ourselves, but to take care of others. Slide 3 here. The Pharisees had developed a system of 613 laws. 365 negative, thou shalt not, thou cannot, thou will not, thou do not. And 248 positive. Why are there more negatives than positives? Are the commandments negatives? The commandments are not negatives. The commandments are positives. Honor God. Respect his name. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And the fourth commandment, the only one that has promise, honor thy father and thy mother, and it will be well with thee, and thou shalt live long upon the face of this earth. Our commandments are intended to be positive instructions and directions for us. Now, isn't it interesting how the Pharisees are just like a lot of churches today? Where in the Bible does it say it's a sin to dance? Anybody know? Where in the Bible does it say it's a sin to drink? Anybody know? Where in the Bible does it say you have to wear a dress or cover your head or dress a certain way on Sunday morning to come to church? Where in the Bible does it say church is at 10:45? Where in the Bible does it say you have to sit in pews, not chairs? Where in the Bible does it say you have to read King James? You're not allowed to read any other translation? It doesn't. But yet churches have this tendency to always want to take God's law and to interpret it in a form like the Pharisees do of creating all these additional rules and laws and policies. If we really love each other and really care about each other and love God and respect God, we would be saying to each other, come as you are. And let me share with you how much I love my Lord and my Savior. And I think you will discover the beauty and the privilege and the pleasure of doing the same in your life. So the question we ask today, why are you here? Why are you here today? People come to church for all sorts of reasons. I just jotted down a few of them. You're here because you want to be here. You're here because you thought you had to be here. You're here because you're concerned about what others think if you're not here. You're here because you want to sing in the praise team. You're here because it's your birthday. You're here because you want to be with God's people. You're here because you want others to see how good you are. You're here because you're bored staying at home. You're here because you want to get away from the spouse or your kids. You're here because you wanted to know what is going on with everybody else in the church so you could have some good conversation in the week talking to everybody else about what's going on. You came to see someone in particular. And the list goes on and on and on. But why are you here? That's good. That's good. I would hope that we are here because we love God enough we want to say thank you. I hope you are here because you love God enough that you want to hear him speak to you. He's not limited to the walls of his church, but he speaks to us through his word when we read it together. He speaks to us through Bible study. He speaks to us through the songs that we sing. He speaks to us when we greet one another with the love of God and we can share that peace of the Lord. He speaks to us in everything we do together. And it's like anything else in your life. You can be the greatest athlete in the world, but if you don't have a team, how are you going to show it? You can be the greatest spokesman in the world, but if there is nobody in the crowd, who will know? Jesus says to us, and in Scripture it says to us, do not remove yourself from the assembling of the saints. And David himself said to us, the reality of the world in which we live is, dear Lord, why is it that those I go to your temple with are the ones that hurt me the most? It's the reality of the world we live. And we have to accept it of that. Now, I'm not saying it's right, But don't be surprised if sometimes when you go to church that somebody is sitting in your pew. Delbert, I'm waiting for that day. Yeah? We need to put a sign up. Beware whose pew you sit in. Half the men are packing. And 1/3 of their wives are packing. Yeah? Be careful where you sit. No, are your parking spot, and I'm very grateful. Is Diane here? I thought I saw Diane earlier. Diane Brookins? She was here? Yeah, I'm very grateful to her. She put the sign out there, the parking sign for pastor. You know, there was a little, what do we call it, Marks a Lot sign there for a while. And she went to put a formal sign up. You know, in my life, in my ministry, I've often had misgivings. One of the principles in church growth is you should always make visitors feel special. And the most special parking spot should be reserved for visitors and visitors only. And I've always thought it's kind of a bad example if we're going to do that, and then all of a sudden we take the very best spot and we give it to the pastor. But Diane was smart. She didn't give me the first spot. She didn't give me the second spot. She gave me the third spot. Okay? But that's somewhat of a recognition of that. We're not saying our pastor's any better or any more special than anybody else. He's just crippled. He's old, you know. Yeah. So we go to our next slide. The fact is, God does not keep attendance. You know, when you stand before God in heaven, God's not going to say, okay, let me see here. You were in church 7,842 times. What about the other 3,064? You know, he's not going to ask for your excuse. He doesn't keep score in that way. He doesn't rank us by percentages. Oh, yeah, you attended church 60% of the time. That's a failing grade in most of our schools, isn't it? Huh? Yeah. God does not need us to attend for his privilege and his benefit. That's not the purpose. He doesn't tell us to remember the Sabbath day because he needs the big audience. He's got his eye on us 24/7. But he says, you need it. Because this is where you come to refuel and to replenish that spirit and that energy. And to, in a very special way, to feel intimate and to feel touched by a God that loves you. And to be re-energized, to go out these doors. You have a little sign out there. And I wonder how many of you even notice it's there, or how many of you, it's been there so long you don't even notice it's there anymore. It says, we are now leaving to enter the mission field. What does that mean? Yeah. It should be saying, I'm charged up. I'm ready to go. I can't wait to share this with somebody that I care about and somebody that I consider to be important. So, but sometimes we just sit there and say, what does God want from me? It doesn't seem to be working. I don't feel that sense of attachment or that sense of his power in me. What does he want from me? What does he expect from me? You know, where's he taking me? Where is he going to lead me and guide me? My relationship with God is my number one focus. And I would pray that we could all make this statement together. So let's read it, okay? My relationship with God is my number one focus. I know that if I take care of that, God will take care of everything else. I have a phrase that I've shared with people for years and years and years, and I do because I believe it with every absolute moment of my life. Do the right thing and good things will happen. And it's not what's right in your eyes, it's what's right in God's eyes. Do the right thing, even when you don't want to. And good things will happen. Good things will happen. So where do we go from here? God's all about relationship. John, the disciple that Jesus said he loved, he reminds us we can love him because he first loved us. You know, we're not giving to God anything that he hadn't already given to us. We're not committing to God anything that he hasn't given to us with the intent that we would be privileged and we would be gifted to share that back with him. Next quote. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's like the child saying to you, Mom and Dad, I know you love me. I know you want me home at midnight. And out of respect for you, I will be home at midnight. Now, maybe more girls or more boys would say, out of fear of you and what happened to me last time. Okay? Well, I think that's what I'm talking about. Do the right thing and good things happen. Because when we don't do the right things, bad things happen. And you would think sooner or later we'd learn. Sooner or later we'd get it. Sooner or later we'd realize when I do the right thing, my life is so much better. And when I choose to do the wrong thing, my life just seems to be falling apart. So what do? I share my faith with others to fulfill God's purpose. That is God's purpose in our life. To share with others who he is and what he is. And so the only question we should have is, how do I do it? And I apologize, I've run a little long here today. But there's one more story I'd like to share with you. There was a New York City businessman that owned a massive high-rise building, and his name was on top of the building. Not Trump, but somebody like Trump, okay? And everybody that worked in that building knew that the CEO was on the top floor in his private suite, in his big fancy office, that unless you were called there, you never went there. Most of the people in that company had not even met the CEO, but they were well aware that his daughter worked in that same building. And his daughter was there every day, and his daughter was well known by all the people in the company. And she walks in the office one day, and she walks up to the security guard, and she says, Ed, I got up a little late this morning. I want you to leave the door, and I want you to go over to the donut shop and get me a Danish and a cup of coffee and bring it back to me. And Ed thinks, man, I can't leave my guard post here. If I do, I'll get fired. I'll lose my job. But this is the boss's daughter that's telling me to do this. Surely, she knows what the rules are, and she knows what it would cost me, so if she's asked me to do this, I guess it's okay. So he leaves his post, and he goes to get the Danish, and he goes to get the coffee. She gets on the elevator and runs into one of the secretaries of one of the vice presidents, who has both arms laden with paperwork. She says, where are you going? He said, oh, I'm running this paper up. I've got to make copies. We've got a meeting today at 11 o'clock, and I need to have copies for everybody in the conference room. She says, well, take care of that later. Right now, I want you to come to my office and vacuum my carpet. And the lady there holding the paper saying, but what happens if I don't make it in time to have all of the copies for the people in this very important meeting? But this is the owner's daughter that's asking me to do this. I guess I have to do that. I guess I have to do that. The reality is, Ed would probably lose his job. His secretary would probably lose her job. And everybody in that building that knew that daughter feared her because she was always telling people what to do. Not that she had a right to, but they knew she was the owner's daughter. And they knew that if they made her angry, that it'd probably go right back to Dad, and that they would catch it. Horrible story. And I pray that you've never been in that situation. But how different is the story if we change the behavior of the daughter? How different would it be? When she comes in the front door, she looks at Ed and says, Ed, we are so blessed to have you here and to keep this place safe and to make sure that anyone that comes in this building has a right and a reason to be in this building that is beneficial to our company. We want to honor you and respect you. You've done good. Or if she had gone to the secretary in the elevator and said, that looks like a lot of work. How about if I come to the copy room with you? How about if I help you? And how about if I help you put together those folders? I'll go to the conference room with you, and I'll help you set them out so that everything can be done and that everything will be taken care of. And how about as she walked through the building, instead of pointing to people, hey, pick up that trash. Hey, where's your tie? Hey, you can't wear flip-flops at work. But instead, if everybody she saw, she just smiled at them. And if everybody she saw, she would say, I hear you're doing a great job. Anybody that's ever been in a position of building teams know that there's one philosophy. I build my team by making everybody fear me. And in our world today, those guys fail, and they fail miserably. The other theory is I build my team by teaching and encouraging. And when they do something right and they do something good, and even when they make a mistake, we help them understand why they made that mistake and how they can make sure they don't make that same mistake again. But we build them up and we encourage them. It's exactly the same in the kingdom of God. Because that daughter reflected the presence of the president of the company, and everybody knew that. When we say we're Christian, we reflect our boss. We reflect our Father. And we get to choose which daughter we're going to be. The daughter that tells people to go take care of her stuff. The daughter that tells people, don't do what my dad told you to do. Don't worry about it. Or the daughter that says, hey, let me help you. What do you need? How can I make your life better? How can I make your day better? How can I make things better for you? We appreciate and respect what you do for this company. We appreciate and respect what you do for this kingdom and for our Father, Son, and Spirit in heaven and within us, and for each and every one of us as fellow believers. Which do you want to be? Which daughter do you want to be? Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And I pray that is true for you. Stand with me, please.